Hello, welcome to my cellar. I'm Tim Kask, sometimes known as the Curmudgeon, by choice. Several things to talk about tonight. Several things to warn you about. I'm going to be trying a new video program. I've got a new video camera. I'm working with the guy that's helping me make these look better. So over the course of the next three, we hope to make them look a little more professional as we go. A little better quality of the screen, a little better quality of the picture, I mean. Let's see. We'll see where to start with. Okay, I'm just going to read some of the comments that I got and talk about them. I think it's very inspiring to hear you talk about enjoying your time being part of the creation of D&D. I'm glad you understand how much you and all that were involved in the first few years of D&D mean to the hobby and us. Can't thank all you guys enough for pouring your heart into the design of something amazing. Well, you're welcome. Thanks for the nice compliments. It's not like we weren't having a boatload of fun. It's not like we didn't know we were on the crest of something new. It was only a little while afterwards that Gary and I, in one of our famous bullshit sessions, recognized the fact that we'd created a new version of Esperanto for nerds. And so you're welcome. Yeah, we had fun. I mean, it wasn't like going to work. It was like, hey, what are we going to do when we get there today? In my case, my wife worked second shift at the hospital in Elkhorn, which was triangularly not in Lake Geneva, not in Delavan, but it was north of Lake Geneva. And we had one car. So I went to work in the morning and I worked till about 1 or 2. Then I went home and I gave my wife the car and she went to work second shift at the hospital. And I did the rest of my work at home in the back bedroom. This is when we had a back bedroom. We just had one child. And I loved it. I didn't see it as being a burden. It was something I did. As soon as we put our daughter Mandy down, bam, I was back working. It's where the Boulé was created. That's where a lot of editing was done. That's where psionics were hammered out, for better or for worse. Pardon me. So you're welcome. Yeah, we had a great time doing it. We all kind of felt like, well, there's a book you ought to read called The Merry Pranksters. It's about Ken Kesey and his band of loonies that went around in the bus and having fun, the Merry Pranksters. And there were many days without the LSD that we felt a lot like the Merry Pranksters. Okay, when I hear discussions about using different rule sets for gaming, the main concern seems to always be whether the players will be happy. I know that there is no game without players, but what about the enjoyment of the person who puts in the vast majority of time into the game, the GM? I'm fortunate in that I have players who are just happy to play and who are willing to be immersed in whatever world I choose to make. Good, glad. I'm truly not being snarky. I'm happy for you. And for these people that you're asking about, you have a very valid point. I can't see someone so anxious to be a DM that they would go out just simply looking for players at their friendly local or at their local con, or whatever. When friendly local, short for friendly local game store, your brick and mortar place, which we all should support, and I do whenever possible. And just go, hey, I'm looking for role players. And they go, hey, what do you want to play? It would seem to me that any DM, GM, whatever you want to call it, I still call them DMs because that's what I grew up with. By the way, the red gloves, I was asked about that. No, KeyBank is not one of my sponsors. I still have peripheral nerve damage in my hands, and they get very, very cold. but I can still type with these. So this is what I wear. I have a pair of workout ones that are too bulky to type with, but they're good for driving. I'm trying to find some nice, tight, thin, good quality leather ones with no fingers. Anyway, where was I? Oh yeah, back looking for players. You don't. I've never seen it where somebody just goes and puts a sign up on the bulletin board looking for role players. I usually see signs for looking for role players interested in playing D&D, first edition, third edition, whatever. DCC, MCC, Traveler, Villains and Vigilantes. They look for players that want to play in the world that they want to create. And if you can't find players that want to play in your world, well, a couple of things you can do. You can continue looking for more players. And if you still are having trouble, then you might want to reconsider the world that you're offering. But if you, the DM, and you, the guy that is, or girl, or whoever, you're putting in all the work, obviously it's got to be something you enjoy. Don't ask me to run a campaign of, Pathfinder. I don't know anything about Pathfinder. I don't want to run Pathfinder. It sounds like it's way too complicated for me. So no, don't come to me and say, will you be our GM and run Pathfinder? That's not the way this works. Yeah, it's about the group having fun. And what is the key element to the group having fun is a shared interest. A shared interest in playing, a shared interest in fantasy, a shared interest in the camaraderie and friendship around the table that is either there before or soon becomes, in most good groups, this camaraderie and comradeship grows and you become tight. And as players, you start intuiting what the guy next to is going to do. They know that you got their back, et cetera, et cetera. That's all part and parcel of it, and that's got to be part of what you're doing. You're fortunate, and I feel I have the utmost sympathy for people that want to be a GM, DM, SM, whatever, and can't find players that want to play with them. Yeah, I feel bad for them. Oh, I've taken to getting interesting dragon lighters lately. I don't know if you can see that one. And then I got another one. These are going to be props. This one's a dragon's tooth with a dragon's head on the top. Anyway, easily sidetracked tonight. Sorry for that. Yeah, you go find what you want to play. You want to play Traveler, you go find Traveler. You go and look at those bulletin boards at the friendly local store, or at the local con, or the local newsletters or whatever are out there, and you look for people that want to play the game that you want to run. The common interest that's shared throughout is the game that you're playing, the milieu that you're playing it in, the friendship around the table. That's the commonality. That's what we come for. My last, which was again several years ago, my last face-to-face local one, I had a couple of guys that were much later edition players who just didn't fit. They didn't play the same. They didn't approach the game the same. Besides the fact that they're kind of were douchebags, they just didn't fit. And rather than throw them out, because I hate to do that, when I suspended the campaign for con season, I just never got it back up. And if I do, or if I did, they just wouldn't be on my recall list. So, obviously there's no point in playing in something you're not having fun, or playing with people you don't enjoy. But I think that the common interest is not just in the telling in the story, but the setting, the background, and the warmth and warm fuzzy feelings you get from the people sitting around the table. Back in the day, when I smoked tobacco pipe and coached little boys soccer, I had one of my players convinced that I was a dragon. Late at night, I changed into a dragon and flew over everybody's homes, and I could blow these enormous amounts of tobacco smoke through my nose, but it's a lot harder to do with a vapor. Okay, next one comment. I feel lucky that I get into the hobby during AD&D first edition. My teachers were Gygaxians. The state of the game came back when state of the game back then became inspired me to add to it to create my own game with it. I bring this up because I was running a 5e module for about 6 months in 2018. As I've been transitioning into running my own setting, I've hit a bit of a wall in the community. I noticed that most of the players do not want to play anything not written by WotC. Also, I've been actively discouraged by other DVMs to avoid creating my own stuff. I'm sorry, I'm not reading my glasses tonight. This just seems crazy to me. I'm pretty sure this mentality toward the game comes from the Adventure League. One other thing, running 5e kind of makes me feel like I'm playing D&D waiting for the AD&D or third to come out because of how little options there actually are for character development outside the traditional. Well, that's a long one, and I'm sorry I didn't read it all that well. Teachers were Gygaxians. That term's been used so many different ways. And so now you started in first edition, and now you're playing 5e, and you're running into, as I sum this up, you're running into opposition about, oh, horrors, you can't possibly run it. It's not written in the book. Well, with sounding just a little bit condescending, just pat him on the head and say, it's not your fault. You were raised wrong. This is a result of modules that can't have NPCs die in the beginning because they got to be there at the end. They don't want you to run anything that isn't run by WotC because then they can't memorize it. Now, that is one way to play the game, but it sure as hell does not appeal to me. I want challenges. I don't want memorization. I want puzzles. I don't want memorization. If they don't like playing in homebrewed stuff, don't play with them. Or challenge them to sit down and play the real deal. Give them all 3rd or 4th level characters from AD&D, pre-gen. Say, here, play these. Let's go. I'm going to show you how much fun you can have. And then just give them something wild and woolly and outside the box and weirder and make them think, and stretch their heads. I don't know enough about the Adventure League to blame them. I do know that it's kind of the same mindset that Pathfinder had when they were riding the top of the wave. Play it our way or the highway, Pathfinder Society. If you don't play it in our tournament, it doesn't count. That's kind of the WotC mindset with the Wizards of the Coast and their, Wizards game and all that kind of stuff. So I see some similarities there in the mindsets. I think that the people that adhere to that rigid mindset will never be a good first edition player if they can't shed that shell that they need to molt that rigid shell and let their brains expand in new directions and try thinking new things and not have everything memorized before you go in. Just my opinion, but hey, if you're having fun doing that other stuff, fine. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to the ones that don't understand it or not having fun with it. And so you're now finding running 5e makes you feel like I'm playing D&D, waiting for AD&D or third to come out because of how little options there actually are to character development outside the traditional. Well, yeah, you're right. Too bad. That's the way it was. So just start with AD&D and do it the way we did it. Develop skills and abilities through experience, trial and error. Get your finger pricked a couple of times by that needle. Make your saving throws and learn to look for the needle next time. All right, now I know the person who wrote this. I remember this. Do you feel like the storytelling, weaving an epic tale aspect of D&D is at odds with the board game, rulings, rules, parameters, etc. aspect? Or does each GM have to mix both to their players and their taste? Good question. Gentleman that wrote it, and you know who you are. It is a good question. Let's look at that at a real basic level. Everything has to have order. Out of chaos comes order. Just as the laws of physics and thermodynamics and magnetism and all that kind of stuff work in our real world on this real planet in a certain way, so too do the rules of the system provide parameters. Gravity says you and I, no matter how goddamn fast we are, can't run across, no matter how smooth it is, the smoothest track in the world, jump in the air and fly. No matter how fast we are. Gravity says we can't do that. Law of physics says that if we jump out of an airplane without a flight suit or a parachute, or or have the extreme luck of hitting the one of a zillion swamp where you don't go in over your head when you land, jumping out of that airplane at 1,000 feet, physics tells us we're going to be a big puddle. It's a limitation. Rules in games should be looked at the same way. You know, I know that if I go out on my roof and I throw a rock off my roof, it's going to go as far as my arm can throw it and fall to the ground in a parabolic arc. It's physics. It's old arms. Okay? What's the difference with acknowledging the fact that rules, parameters, limitations exist in real life? Why do we have a problem with them existing in a game? Why can't we just accept it? And come on, you live on a planet where you can't jump off a 20-story building, spread your arms, and fly, no matter how many times you've dreamed it. You can't do it. All right? The game rule says you can't catch a 500-pound boulder falling from 500 feet and not expect to be smashed like that mosquito on my windshield. I really think you need to look at rules, parameters, whatever, as the common sense of your world. No matter how much I huff and I puff, I'm never going to blow your house down. No matter how hard I try, I'm never going to shoot fire out my butt. Many occasions I thought I had or was, but no, it's not going to happen. So why the problems? Rulings? Okay. Rulings are standing on that bluff on the side of the river, holding on to that rope swing that's been up there 3 years with a board tied across the bottom, and deciding whether or not you're going to try to swing out and jump off and make it to the other side of the river. Rulings are what happened when you tried. If you look at it that way, they're not restrictions. They're just they're parameters. We know that, certain things are not going to happen in our world. We're not going to walk out in the backyard and be sucked up into a quicksand hole where our tomato patch used to be. I know I'm rocking again, and I recommend Dramamine if I'm making you seasick. Let's see, what's next? Wet the tonsils. All right. How important is it to have read some of what's listed in Appendix N in the GM Guide? I found it increasingly difficult to share a vision of my preferred milieu with people who are not familiar with books that inspire me. Good question, and I prepared for that. Believe it or not, I'm actually ready for this one. I have my super spiffy commemorative reprint for which the money that was supposed to go to the Memorial Fund has disappeared. Anyway, the infamous Appendix N. And really, this could be so much bigger. These are the books that really, to be honest, and not try to seem like some sort of glory grabber, these are the books that I read, and Gary read, and Dave read, and a lot of the people that were involved in this, these are the books we read because this is what was out. Paul Anderson, John Bellairs, Leigh Brackett, Frederick Brown, Edgar Rice Burroughs, Lynn Carter, L. Sprague de Camp and Pratt. If you want some really good ones to focus on, to really understand, you need to read the Jack Vance Dying Earth. That will explain to you Gary's thoughts behind magic. That is a good common ground to have. Very good. I can't recommend that one enough. The Jack of Shadows, the Amber series by Zelazny. Those are good ones. Eyes of the Overworld, also by Vance. Another great one. Fletcher Pratt wrote some great stuff. Do you have to read it? No. Fritz Leiber? No. I think if you read it, Robert E. Howard, Gardner Fox, really nice guy when I got to meet him. I think if you read it, it'll give you ideas. When we published this, when we compiled it, we did it as an aid to game masters everywhere that were desperately looking for ideas to steal, to amalgamate, to modify, to incorporate, to do a Borg on, and make their own adventures. So we were saying, hey, we really like these books. We think you will too. Now, today, have you read the Potter books? Fine. Adapt it to D&D. Easily done. The magic becomes a word and a memorized spell. And you can modify that just a little. And now everybody has a common ground. Take elements of some of the movies, Labyrinth and Enchanted Garden and some of that kind of stuff, and adapt it from movies that they might have seen. Appendix N gives us a common ground to understand what those of us that were involved in the creating read as our source material that we mined for ideas. There's hardly any magic item in there that we didn't read about somewhere else or read something like it and then modify it. Okay. Hardly. There probably are some, but hardly. So no, do you have to read it? No. Is it fun? Yeah, I recommend it, especially those authors that I mentioned, simply because they're great. And if you love swords and sorcery, they're some of the best. But hey, there's lots of them stuff out there now. This Drizzle or whatever he is, who broke all the rules of D&D, fighting with 2 weapons and that. Bob Salvatore's stuff is real popular, and I know that. And Tracy Hickman's stuff is real popular, and Margaret Weiss's. And if you've all just read those, or enough of you, then lift Kenders. Everybody knows what Kenders are, Lift. Have everybody read Hans Cummings' trilogy. Great stuff, where a dungeon becomes self-aware and alive, and the characters go from NPCs to PCs. It's Appendix N was our very first attempt to say, okay, here's the ground that we mined for our ideas. Here's the ground. Here's the ideas that shaped our minds. These are the tail spinners that we admired and we would like to emulate. That's what Appendix N is. And it's a wonderful reading experience. And if you're like me and you have a wonderful public library, I go on the library, I can find any of these books, call them up, have them brought to my library, which is like 2/3 of a mile from my house, and read them for free. Because a lot of them are classics, maybe in an old paperback. But hey, it's good stuff. And it'll give you the best insight into what our first mind sight was. That's what we mined from. Okay, somebody talking about the knack stat. Better copyright that quick. Now, this one, I got to admit, was a little strange. And even putting on my glasses, it doesn't read quite well. And I don't know if I'm heartened or dismayed that there's people out there reading these and typing responses that are at least as screwed up as I am. The maze is the solution to the dungeon. He thought I was inferring that. Well, yeah, puzzles are much more fun than killing shit. Figuring out neat ways and safe ways to kill shit is a lot of fun. Who doesn't love properly shaved dice? That must be in reference to my standards dice. Good old Lynn Carter, and he's blaming the Jesuits. Yeah, well, when I got my master's, I went to a Jesuit college. That's pretty much all I got to say on that one. Now, I got 2 more things to talk about tonight. Oh, three. First off, our contest. Apparently, I'm not being taken seriously. And now I realize, okay, no wonder. Now, the contest is to name the 2 spells with which Benny 2 spells can absolutely, irrevocably, irretrievably, unredeemably kill you dead. And name the 2 spells. They have to be standard spells from AD&D or before. And I know why I didn't. You got no responses? Because I forgot to tell you, there's going to be prizes. First off, the winner gets to choose between this weird gray Crown Royal dice bag, felted fabric, this baby poop brown winter Crown Royal dice bag of the standard size, or this very special Dallas Cowboys 100% rayon dice bag. And inside the dice bag, prizes. One of them's guaranteed to be something I absolutely guarantee 99.98% of you don't have. All right, let's see. What else is on my list? Oh, Lord. The pressure is on for this auction of many things. After I found out just how much money they're investing in me to bring me out there to do this. These dice of mine and those 8 spots in my game gotta sell for a shit pot full of money for them to even get their investment back. The pressure's on. I gotta give these winners something they're going to talk about for years to come, just to make me feel like I'm giving them their investment's worth. But I'm pretty sure, in fact, I know I got something up my sleeve that's up to the task. I know. And my last topic tonight. This is just more of a rhetorical one. But I was thinking about gaming. Is it an addiction? Is it a propensity we're born for? Is it somewhere in between? First off, the propensity we're born with. I know that's in my case because I've been playing games since I was 4 or 5. My family played games. My mom was big on playing games with us kids. And I took to them right away, and I'm competitive. And I'm intelligent, so I picked them up real quick. And I was very competitive. Wasn't a very good loser, but I was very competitive. And for me, it's always been there. I'll play just about anything. Cards, love poker, like gin, love euchre, cribbage, pinochle, double-deck pinochle, just about any kind of poker you can think of. It's a game. I'm competitive, and I've been playing poker since I was in 1st or 2nd grade. Draw poker back then. So I've always had this competitive streak, and then I found gaming, and I wanted to compete in athletics, but I was skinny and tall. I mean, I went into the service when I was 18, and I was 5'9.5", and I weighed 117 or 121 pounds, which meant if I stood sideways and stuck my tongue out, I looked like a zipper. So I wanted to be competitive there, and I just was too small. But here's the other side of an addiction. Once you get it, you got to keep feeding it. And game producers have come to realize that and take advantage of that addiction. I can honestly say that when we made the G series to take to the convention in Detroit, we did not take it to sell, as it was purely an experiment to see if there was any market. And had we known it was going to sell the way it did, we had an extra day, we could have made another 300 copies of each of them. Another 900, sold another 900 units. But modules, adventures, whatever you want to call them, they're a moneymaker. And producers know that. And so are expansions. And we at TSR were some of the very first and the very worst. Hi, here's these 3 little brown books. Ooh. Here's this other one. Whoop, here's another one. And a couple, three more afterwards. And now there's a whole new set. Oh, here's these adventures. Oh, you got to have the dice. And it's not just D&D. Now, there's guys that play a game called Flames of War that'll tell you that they're not gamers. Well, I agree in that their rules suck. Worst miniature rules I've ever seen. But these guys spend enormous amounts of money on their figures and getting them painted and building armies and all this kind of stuff. They're definitely addicted. How many of you can go look your significant other in the eye and say, I have in my house, in my possession, less than 25 dice. We feed the addiction. Expansions. Scythe. Great game. Expensive. To get the expansions costs as much as the beginning one did, again, total. So now you got twice as much in. Rising Sun. Great game. Expansion, same as Scythe, from 5 to 7. Expansion, new units, new rules, same as Scythe. And I'm not condemning the manufacturers, the producers. It's a viable business model. And they're not selling us something that's going to kill us with cancer. And they're not selling us something that's going to corrode our liver. And they're not selling us something that's going to cause our personalities to change, where we drop kick our poodle across the room and beat our significant other in a furious rage. So when does the hobby become the addiction? Just a rhetorical question for tonight. Now we come to the part where, as this gets better and better, we're going to, make this look more and more professional. This is the part where we talk about the sponsors, and then there'll be music. And of course, the music's going to be written by the Bards of Greyhawk. Check them out online. I'm sponsored by the Dice Fanatics, who'll give you, if you're a new sign up, you can get a free set of polyhedrons. Old Guard Games, something new I'm involved with. Merle Rasmussen from Top Secret's involved, getting some of us old guys doing old school games. The World of Game Design. And my magical digital services, even though it says the opposite of that here, is performed by Biggest Fan Productions. And they will be the ones that will then wrap all this up. And so it closes. And let's see. 3 weeks going to TotalCon. Not gonna make one at TotalCon, but as soon as I get back from TotalCon, I'm gonna try and do one, because a couple days after I get back from TotalCon, I head to LA. Now I'm gonna try to do one at LA, but I don't know. I have a new camera and everything, but I don't know. And then comes GaryCon, and we are going to do one on the way to GaryCon. Curmudgeons in Cars going to GaryCon, Chapter 2, and we'll have a third person in the car this time. So this may get a little herky-jerky. New production values coming along here, new camera. But hopefully it just gets better and better, and you keep enjoying it. With that, I'll say, hasta la vista, baby.